Now, the International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, along with his son and his military intelligence chief. They're for crimes against humanity against political opponents. Now, this is the second time in the court's 9-year history that it has issued an arrest warrant for a sitting head of state. Let's see the success of this, though. The other was Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir, who is now facing trial, he's not facing trial at The Hague, and that is because he is still ruling. He's the president of Sudan, and his charges include war crimes. Now, there are some other arrests that have been made that the court has issued. Let's look at some of them. One is for the Kenyan Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Finance of the Republic of Kenya on charges of murder, forcible transfer, rape, persecution, other inhumane acts. Now, a few have ended up at the court, been handed over by countries. Let's look at a couple of those. One is Charles Taylor. Let's put that up. He is the former leader of Liberia. Now, his charges weren't actually from the ICC, but he ended up being extradited there for the actual court hearings for that trial. And another included the former Congolese leader. Let's go to that. He was apprehended. He was the rebel leader of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So he was taken to the ICC for charges including enlisting and conscripting children under the age of 15 years into the armed forces and using them to participate in hostilities. But what do these charges mean for Gaddafi? As you've seen, the court charges don't always result in somebody actually facing a trial at the court or even being arrested on those charges. And could they even be a hindrance to peace in Libya? And if Gaddafi came to the U.S., get this, he hypothetically would not be arrested on these charges. So why is that? Well, joining me now to help answer some of these questions is radio host Alex Jones. Thanks so much for being with us, Alex. Nice to see you. Now, first off, I just made the point that if Gaddafi came to the U.S., he hypothetically would not be handed over to the ICC. And that is because the U.S. is not part of the ICC, and the ICC relies on member states to make arrests. Now, the U.S. signed on to the treaty for the ICC, but did not end up ratifying it. Other large countries have done the same. Why do you think that is? Why isn't the U.S. a part of this?
Because certain elements of the United States, and of course I'm amongst them, realize the ICC is basically a global government court of the larger private central banks that are dominating our society. And the ICCC, or the ICC, saying that they want to try Gaddafi for crimes against humanity, that would be like having Hitler over the Nuremberg trials of Nazis. You've got European nations in Serbia, and now in Libya, bombing and killing civilians. That's not debated. Shooting up fishing boats. You have them now admittedly trying to assassinate Gaddafi itself, an international war crime. The ICC has said nothing about the war crimes in Iraq, in that 8.5+ year war, or Afghanistan, the admitted massacres. So this is really a joke. And the way the ICC carries out trials is a joke, just like the World Criminal Court with Slobodan Milosevic. And again, I'm not saying any of these guys are good or bad. The point is, he died while they were holding him, and they wouldn't let him have his witnesses. They wouldn't let him testify. So it's a total and complete kangaroo court. It's a joke, and it's a tool of basically the Anglo-American EU establishment to go in and persecute countries. It's Western-backed rebels that have been overthrowing these countries, or trying to in Syria, and overthrowing Egypt with the old ally Mubarak, and now against Gaddafi. And it's on record the West is backing al-Qaeda groups in the East who are real war criminals. So the ICC, the World Court, all of these groups are kangaroo joke courts, like the Vatican 600 years ago, you know, ordering that different kings in England and places be arrested. I mean, it's a bunch of criminals basically legitimizing their genocide and wars and their neo-colonial invasions because they issue arrest warrants for people they want to rob.
All right, let me get in here. Alex, I don't think I've ever heard you agree with the U.S. government on anything. I think this might be a first here since you've been on RT. So why then are we hearing NATO members and the Western mainstream media come out and champion this as kind of a good thing, as a success? They welcomed it. The reports from Voice of America, for example, are that Libyan rebel leaders are, you know, excited and welcome these charges. So why that reaction if the U.S. dismisses this court entirely?
Because the United States knows that this violates its sovereignty, and criminals in our government know that they could be charged for war crimes by the Kangaroo Court. And they also, we have large constituencies like Ron Paul and others that understand we have our Supreme Court. We don't need this ICC. Our jurisprudence, our common law is the best in the world. No one can debate that. And so there's still vestigial movements to keep us out of the World Court, the ICC, any of these groups. So it's a complex issue. But the World Court, the ICC, they discredit themselves look, I'm not on either side, Muslim, Croat, or Serb. I studied it, and even the UN admits the Croats and Muslims killed double the Serbs that Serbs killed. So why aren't they hauled up? Well, the Serbs were the main power base and had to be removed so the EU could come in and absorb it and control the narcotics money coming through out of Albania. So it's all just cold-bloodedly done. So all these courts are just complete jokes, and a lot of times they kill who they're holding before they ever get to trial. I mean, this is a complete joke. This is a modern political dungeon system.
Let me get in here for a second, Alex. I just want to back up. You said that the United States already has a Supreme Court, that this is the American justice. It's all that America needs. It doesn't need its sovereignty violated, as you said. We just heard that the U.S. Supreme Court has refused to hear the case to revive the lawsuit of Abu Ghraib against contractors. Now, this was in 2004 when those pictures emerged, a huge embarrassment for the United States. People were very outraged over it. Wouldn't this be a perfect example of a great case for the ICC, for an international criminal court?
Well, Europe is all part of the same corporate combine that really runs America, and that would just be a political grandstanding situation to promote globalism and add legitimacy to it that then attacks sovereign nations, whether it's China, Russia, or the United States, or Brazil for that matter, or India. We have courts to deal with it, and there have been moves for impeachments. There have been moves for federal grand juries to indict the White House lawyers, John Yoo, Alberto Gonzales, that called for that. And I have promoted criminal charges against President Bush for what he did. But we don't need some kangaroo court doing that. That's for the United States to do.
But if American justice fails, what about another option that's international? I mean, you don't see any room for that?
Well, I mean, who created these international courts?
I'm just curious if there's a yes or no question. Are there any situations where that would work or be a good alternative when American justice fails?
I don't think it's the job of this kangaroo court. If America continues down the path of a tyranny and a Nazi Germany situation, it's going to bite off more than it can chew, like Hitler did or like the Soviet Union did, and it's going to collapse, or we're going to be attacked and invaded. And so that's for sovereign nations controlled by sovereign people. This whole UN, European Union court system is run by a bunch of people even more degenerate than the U.S. and Russian or Chinese elite. These are the worst of the worst, run by a bunch of hedge fund bankers trying to play the part of imperial world government gods. So I say down with their ICC. This, again, having them go after Gaddafi for war crimes is like Hitler sitting in at the Nuremberg trials to go after Nazis. It's a sick joke, and there's no room for the New World Order or world government. So no, it's up to Americans and other people around the world to deal with their governments and to take their governments back and then to prosecute criminals. It is not the place of EU courts and globalist courts that have proven they're kangaroo. Maybe if they were legitimate and had a history. All right,
Alex, let me get in here because I do want to, we heard a lot of your opinion on that, and I do want to switch gears briefly to ask you.
It's the fact that it's a kangaroo court.
Okay, we heard you. I think everybody heard that kangaroo court comment. We got it. We have your take on that. I want to ask you about a different story that you've been covering, and that is something that we covered a year ago, and that was the G20 and the protests and the immense security, the $1 billion spent on security. And at that time, there were reports that it was possible that maybe cops were using agent provocateurs in some of these protest activities. Now, your website is reporting that documents reveal that Canadian cops used agent provocateurs to disrupt the 2010 G20. I'm curious what evidence you have that the state may have arranged some of that property destruction we saw with the Black Bloc protesters in order to offer a rationalization for that nearly $1 billion that they spent on security. What evidence do you have?
Well, Key Bono, who stands to benefit, back in 2007, no, 8, it was in the CBC and the Ottawa Citizen that there were anarchists dressed in police boots with the same logo on the bottom, and when they confronted police about it, the police staged a fight with their own officers to fake arrest them, mock arrest them, and the Canadian Royal Mounted Police had to admit that that was staged. And now last week, the CBC admitted that police were infiltrating the groups to engage in criminal activities as a pretext to attack the larger crowds. And back in '99, we caught police in Seattle. The Seattle Post-Intelligencer reported attacking police as a pretext to then attack the 60,000 peaceful people. At the 2008 Democratic National Convention in Denver, Denver Post reported police attacked their own police as a pretext to then attack peaceful crowds. I was there, and I thought they looked like cops. Your average real anarchist is a meth head, about 5 feet tall, but, you know, giant anarchist on steroids that are able to, you know, throw large men 5 feet. You know, these were obviously police. I thought that at the time, but couldn't prove it. Later, it came out that they were. So when you see giant men in black uniforms with masks on attacking police, and it looks like professional wrestling, and it's fake, a real man punches another man, people get hurt. These cops go and hit each other and have fake fights and then turn their rubber bullets on the protesters and open fire on old ladies. So they've been caught over and over again. So that's how we know that that's the case in Canada, and even major TV up there is saying that that's what's happened.
So you're extrapolating from a larger trend. It's something that we're going to continue to look at because I have my own experience from the ground in Canada and some conflicting reports. But we certainly appreciate your insight. That was Alex Jones, radio host of The Alex Jones Show.